YouTubers, today we're going to discuss Sellier and Bellot brass for reloading. And the reason is because this ammunition is very reasonably priced, and you'll see that the range is a lot, and you're liable to wind up picking up a lot of this Sellier and Bellot brass. Now the company Sellier and Bellot has been around for almost 200 years, and it's excellent ammunition. Some of it is used in competition, even in the Olympics. You can easily identify Sellier and Bellot brass because it says S&B, and then it's got the little crest. Plus, most of the Sellier and Bellot brass has the red lacquer sealer around the primers. Now the topic today is a peculiarity of Sellier and Bellot 44 Remington Magnum brass. And you're liable to run into this brass because, once again, reasonably priced ammunition from Sellier and Bellot will result in us picking up some of this brass at the range. And here's one of them right here. SB, and you see one here. SB, S&B. That's Sellier and Bellot brass. Now very interesting that here's a CBC case. But what is it about S&B brass 44 Magnum that we need to talk about in this video? Have you ever had this happen when you're reloading 44 Magnum Sellier and Bellot brass, that when you try and reprime it, the primer doesn't go in? It's almost acting like there's a crimp in the primer pocket. So YouTubers, you'll see that we can tell crimp primers as a rule because you can see the annular ring here where they crimp the primer in with military brass, like this Lake City 30-06 round. That's done because they can't have primers coming out and causing stoppages of fully automatic weapons. But notice in the Sellier and Bellot rounds, you can't see any kind of ring to tip off any kind of crimp in there. But if you look carefully at this Remington case, there's definitely a larger primer pocket than in this Sellier and Bellot case. And that explains when you deprime this and then you try and reprime it, the primer won't go in. There's some kind of constriction here. It may not be a crimp, but there's a constriction. And we can call it a crimp. So you see, I took a fast glance, and sure enough, there's a Sellier and Bellot case. So now I know this case is going to need to have the crimp removed from the primer pockets. So you advance, put that one in, bullet in 3, seat the bullet, resize the Sellier and Bellot case, but do not attempt to prime it. And that's where this primer pocket crimp removing tool is very handy. What this tool does is for large primer pockets, and it has a reamer there that if you put it into a primer pocket that has a crimp in there, it will ream the crimp out. So here you go. And you see it didn't go in. That's why your primer doesn't go in. So watch now, this whole reamer is going to wind up going in there as you ream out that primer pocket. You see that? That's all the way in now because it's reamed out the crimp. Now you don't need to do anything else except take that case, put it in, and seat the primer. And there you see the primer is seated below the case head the way it should be, all because the crimp that was in that Sellier and Bellot primer pocket was removed. So when you have cases like that, you have to just take a fast glance and see if you're running into a Sellier and Bellot case. And if you are, then instead of priming it, take the case out, take the tool and remove the crimp, put it back in, prime it then. And if you do that, you only need to do that once in all your Sellier and Bellot brass. So YouTubers, here you see 5 Sellier and Bellot cases, all reloaded, all with the primer pockets removed of the crimp, and the primers properly seated. And that brass reloads beautifully, shoots beautifully. So no reason to shun Sellier and Bellot brass. And here is a CBC case, the parent company of Sellier and Bellot, This is a Brazilian company once again. It makes great brass also. Now notice how shiny that is. This is 2 hours of tumbling. I know a lot of you out there like to tumble for like 6 hours, but really it's kind of a waste. If you get good finish on your brass after 2 hours, then that's all you need. YouTubers out there, take care. Good reloading and good shooting to you. Bye for now.